Hello, and welcome back to the Indiewood Podcast, a podcast about independent film and the many hats independent filmmakers have to wear in order to get those films made. This is a podcast about talking to creatives who wear many different hats, who are multi-hyphenates, and in this discussion with these amazing filmmakers and actors and directors and writers and everything under the sun, hopefully we'll, shed some light on how to be a better multi-hyphenate. With me this week, I have the wonderful, the extraordinary actor, producer, writer, JJ Hawkins.
That is me. Hello, Yara.
Hello, welcome.
Great to be here again.
Yeah, welcome back to episode 2 that we're recording the following week.
I just love this shirt. Get over it.
It's how do they do it with like the Great British Bake Off where they like always wear the same clothes and they're like, oh yeah, like let's go do the next thing, the next event,
Genius.
But it's the same clothing, and yet clearly this is 3 days later.
Yeah. So this is the only outfit I wear. Welcome to being a multi-hyphenate.
Do you feel like they just have like a whole laundry department?
Oh, they must. They must.
Yeah.
They're not washing their own laundry. They ain't got time. Their scones are in the oven.
Buy 3 versions of the same shirt.
Also that. I would do that.
I'll have to ask. But speaking of asking, I want to ask you a lot of questions because the last episode we talked a little bit about your journey and then you coming to this point in your life where you're like, I'm going to make my own stuff. And I don't know if we really touched upon that mental transition. Maybe there's spiritual and emotional as well.
Totally.
But you went from, I guess we kind of did a little bit. And you mentioned that you were like, I'm only an actor. Right. And if I do anything else, I'm going to fail. And then eventually you came to this kind of foundation or baseline or existence where you were like, no, this is going to make me a better creator.
Yes.
And so can you tell me a little bit more about that like emotional and physical and spiritual transition that you had where you were like, I'm only going to perform to let me do everything else?
Yeah, I can absolutely talk about that. I didn't actually think I would fail doing other hyphenates.
Of course not.
I just resented the fact that I felt I had to.
Oh, interesting.
Resented it. So it wasn't even about my competence or anything.
See, that's me projecting on you.
Yeah. So
because I'm like, I'm gonna fail.
No, but I think that's a common experience, and I certainly have experienced that as well. Just the original first reaction was like, I shouldn't have to do this.
Yeah.
So I came to LA being like, I'm an actor, I'm an actor. This is what I do. I'm a performer. I'm trained. I'm good. And that's what I want to do. That's where I'm going to be successful. That's where I'm going to have my career. I'm going to, fucking change the world. But then it felt like the true experience that I felt was that I hit a glass ceiling. That it was suddenly there were no more trans roles. And despite the fact that I do not have to only play trans roles, it was almost like that's all that people thought of for me, at least on this, again, I was doing CBS shows, CW shows, so I was in the studio television world system. Yeah. And so it's almost like they're like, oh yeah, even though I had met with and become friends with damn near every single casting director in the city, they were all, which I thought was like, wow, this is amazing. It was like I was only in their head for trans roles. It's like, of course there are exceptions. I got some friends out there, who are like, I'm trying to put you anywhere. But then it's hard, like, to be, again, what every actor deals with that we talked about of marketing yourself, which is like, it's really a good marketing tool to be like, I am this minority thing, so you know right where to put me. If a trans role does come across your desk, you better call me. Yeah. Absolutely, I better be on that short list. But what about me can't play any other roles, right? Yeah. And so I hit this glass ceiling and was like, why did the roles dry up? Why did they stop calling me in? Oh, it's because like trans roles aren't being written. Especially there was just kind of like a heyday, I feel, a few years when me and all my trans friends, we're all friends. We all know each other in the industry. We were all playing these roles that were like, my name is trans and my pronouns are sad and depressed. Like, we didn't have like backgrounds or like depth or like, oh, this is a character who's dealing with all this and there's a layer that they're trans. That was the character. That was it. It was, and so it was feeling like I came here to be an actor. I want to be an actor and that's what I'm good at and that's what I can do. And yet the roles have stopped. Here I am getting all these roles, all guest star roles on these like big shows. Why hasn't that led to my series reg or whatever? You know, these types of thoughts. There's just like, oh, because there's not really many trans roles in series reg roles, and apparently those are the only ones I can play. Anyway, so and whenever I would vocalize these concerns, I would be like, you got to make your own stuff. You got to write your own content. And then I was like, why do I have to do that? Why do I suddenly have to do something else? Yeah, why do I have to be the one to break the glass ceiling? And I think I just needed to get through my time of resenting that fact. That like, you know, a similarly placed and similarly like credited person who is not trans probably wouldn't have had to feel that way, especially someone who like me, otherwise I'm like a white dude, right? And so it's like, oh, if I weren't, well then I probably wouldn't be like, I just need to write a role for myself, even though that may not be true. So still that applies to people. Maybe you just have to write your own role. But anyway, so once I got through the resentment, I was like, okay, well, what I actually want to do, I feel like I had made friends with like, I feel like I kind of kept pulling the rope back. This was the sensation. I was like, as an actor, I was like, oh, you know what? Like being friends with like casting directors, that's what's going to help me get a job, right? And then it's like casting directors are like, well, actually we don't choose the roles. We can only cast the roles on our desk. Okay. So it's like, okay, so I want to be friends with writers. Writers will start writing roles for me, which has happened. But then it's like, oh, but we can only like produce the things that the producers choose, like that gets greenlit. And so I was like, so it all comes back to these producers. Producers are the ones being like, yes to that and no to that, right? And so I was like, that's where I want to go. I want to be the one saying yes or no. And so I started reaching out to these connections I had, and I was like, hey, I want to be a producer. How do I do that? And everyone was like, you just start. And I was like, I can't like, I don't know, shadow someone or maybe get mentored. And they're like, nah, you just jump in. They're like, you got a short film? And I was like, I mean, I did have an idea for a short film that actually I was inspired at one of our Stupid Cupid premieres or showings, screenings. There was another short there that really inspired me. Do you remember that one?
Was it at Dances with Films?
It was at Dances with Films, yes.
Yeah.
And there were, I think it was Australian, and there were these
Was
two
it the
dudes
nail
getting
salon
their
one?
nails
Oh my
done.
God, I love that
Yes.
one. What was it? It was...
I forget what it was called.
Short Nails?
That sounds right. I can't remember the title though.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was so funny. And the whole premise was just these two dudes getting their nails done, but they're talking about their lives.
Yeah.
And it's two characters and then the two other characters of the women who are doing their nails. But it's one location, two friends, and just their banter is funny.
Two camera angles, that's it.
Literally two camera angles, and they're in a cute little, you know, like location. The setting is cute. But I was like, this is a great short film.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be like explosions, car chases, like to make a good film at all. So I was really inspired by that. And I remember being like, I could write something like that. And so that was where I got the idea of like, I'm going to write just, and what I went in with it as a very producible script.
Yeah.
So I was like, this whole thing, I just want to learn how to produce.
So two things. I have a question and then observation. It's funny that with Stupid Cupid, that led you to the festival, Dances with Films, where we screened, to then see that film, to then making your own.
Yes.
Which is, I think, a fascinating thread to follow through.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing, it was
cute.
about...
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. We're unpacking the history.
Unpacking our history, finally.
Right. What makes... the question was going to be, as a producer, what do you think is a producible script after having gone through the experience of making a short and now producing features, which we'll touch on later in the series, but what constitutes a producible script for you?
So, especially at that time when I was like learning how to produce, I was just like things that made sense to me. So I didn't quite know. That was the whole point of the project. It was like, you're going to teach me. I don't know, project, what makes a producible script. But I was like, two characters and the location is my apartment. Yeah. So I've already got the location set. I already know the actors who are going to be playing me and my best friend. Spoiler alert, it's me and my best friend. And I have enough connections in this industry that I can just ask people around me. So I didn't feel like I needed a big crew. I didn't feel like I needed, and it was really dialogue driven. So we didn't even really need to change like much at all. I mean, it was very simple and straightforward, but the dialogue itself was fun. There was a heart, there was a story, there was something to say.
Yeah.
So I think that is still something that can almost be overlooked. It's like, oh, this is so producible because of all these like logistical aspects, but still make sure like every film has something to say. And with those minimal guiding lights, you can make something happen, you know?
Keep it simple, have something to say.
Yeah. Literally.
One of my favorite films that I've ever done was a short film that I did. I was the director, I wrote it, I shot it, and it was one other actress. That's it.
Yeah.
And it was two separate scenes where one of them was this conversation between two people on a first date, and it was just a POV shot, and that was the baseline for all the dialogue, and then the second scene we shot was this kind of juxtaposition to that happy moment. And one of my favorite projects I've done so far. Ever since that moment, I've been trying to recreate that magic of just simplicity and then a perspective. Yeah.
Simplicity and perspective. Are y'all taking notes?
You better. Well, it's recorded, so they can just
go back,
rewind,
grab your notebook, and take those notes.
Yeah.
I could not resonate with that more. And then I got to turn that like, you know, resentment, that like, why do I have to write my own things, on its head? And I got to be like, I don't know, what's your dream role?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Like,
now,
what do you want to do? Like, oh my God, what do you want to say?
The possibilities are
endless.
Yeah. So
and
with that kind of nugget at Dances with Films, that became a short film called The Golden Boys.
That became a short film called The Golden Boys. That's exactly right.
So The Golden Boys. Tell me more about the boys.
I'll tell you more about the boys. Really cool. So again, I was like, what's a character that I've always wanted to play? And call me crazy, but my dream role is as the dynamic best friend. Like, I just want to be there hyping you up because that's my role in life.
Yeah.
I am the dynamic best friend, but not just to be a best friend. Again, dynamic is an element.
Very authentic. If people listen to the previous episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We talked about authenticity.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And so, and then from there, I kind of almost turned a conversation or it's kind of a slice of life, but you know, a bit 10 minutes slice of life of like kind of a conversation I've had with myself, but my best friend then was playing the character personified by this almost dialogue in my own head. So it's ultimately also, it's a comedy. That was just another thing I was like, oh, do I get to write whatever I want? People are going to laugh. It's like, I feel like the most important or a very significant way to like further someone's, you know, again, I'm thinking of a community, a minority community, the trans community is my community, but like any way to like get people to listen is through laughter. It's like, I want you to tell our difficult stories because those do exist, but I also want you to like laugh with us. I also want you to see that things are funny. We are funny. Oh my God, we're humans. Shocker. And so it was important to me that it was a comedy. And then from there, it did have like a crux of like heart where it's two best friends getting ready to go to a party. And I'm, you know, my best friend comes over and I forgot to tell him that it's actually a twin night. And so we're trying to wear the same outfit. I'm like, okay, we got to get together to twin night. And that leads to some hijinks and some fun. But the whole time he's kind of dealing with something. And then he, in the climax of the film is like, actually, this girl just broke up with me and we've been dating for a while. And now I have to like face the world like dating as a trans person, and dating as a trans person is terrifying and awful and scary. And then the best friend got to be there and be like, hey, yes it is, but also I love you, let's go celebrate our friendship tonight. And like then it's just a celebration of kind of like trans brotherhood, and it's like hopeful but ultimately still like ending on a humorous note. And they're friends a la the Golden Girls. And my character is obsessed with the Golden Girls, totally not based on me at all. And so we named it the Golden Boys, and that comes up in there too. So it's a little funny piece of heart. That's what it is. Really, really sincere and really cute. But yeah, in my apartment, filmed in one day, me and my best friend, boom. Right? Very producible. But also my intention was that I wanted to learn how to produce. So even though it was just in my apartment, I wanted to do the whole thing.
And I think people who are doing small projects should do the whole thing.
Yes.
Because it is a learning
And process. That's exactly what I was going to say. So even though it was in my own apartment, I still went through the whole process of getting insurance, getting permits, going like every dot and tittle, as they say. And I had a lot of people be like, you didn't have to do that, because that costs money. Permits, insurance, money. And they were like, it was just like you and some friends in your apartment. Like, you didn't have to do that. And then by the time I got to my first feature next, I was so glad that I had learned how to deal with permits and insurance on a way lower stakes project. And I think that's a thing a lot of people overlook. Is it's like, how do we finesse the system? And it's like, of course I'm all down for like save money where you can, but there is a point where it's like the biggest like the biggest thing that like short films give you is a place to learn. And I think people really kind of overlook that. And it's like, if you haven't done that on a smaller scale, how are you going to do it on a bigger scale? Like, treat the small scale as big as you want to go, and the big thing will arrive. That's like my reasoning, you know?
And not just from the perspective of a producer, writer, director, cinematographer.
All of these.
Because some people will be like, I'm a director, I'll just get together with some friends like I did, not do the prep, the storyboarding, the whatever, just show up and be like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. That is such a low stakes project. Like you said, you could then do that, make mistakes and mess up, but learn how to do it better for the big thing.
Exactly.
I do want to ask the steps that you took from like a production standpoint, because I know you have this change. You're like, I can be a creative in any way I can. Let me write this amazing role for myself. But then as you were learning those individual steps in a low stakes scenario or environment, what was most important for you looking back on it to learn about the filmmaking process?
Wow. I think probably the first thing that comes to my mind is the possibility. And that, let me define that. I think it was an absolutely crazy experience coming from an actor's standpoint. An actor, there's so much left to chance, and you're just waiting. A lot of waiting for the right role, the right time, the right people, the right room, the right character. There's a lot of waiting. And it was an absolutely like mind-altering experience to be like, no one stopped me. Like, I was just like, I'm gonna produce. And everyone was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, we're going to film on this day. And everyone was like, okay. And I was like, wait, that's it? And I'm like, again, submitting for the insurance or for the permit or whatever. And no one's like, you're a fraud. Or like, I don't know, whatever. Like,
you can't do that.
You did it all wrong. And it's like, no, all of this is very learnable. You just have to like do it. And it was very freeing. It was very empowering to just be like, oh, this is on my timetable. This is on, like, again, I learned the possibility. And there are some hard skills, plenty of hard skills. And I learned those and continue to learn those throughout the films I've done then and since and everything. But it's like, I think that was the biggest and most important thing I learned. And something that I think a lot of people, especially when they're first here, or especially if they're actors, almost feel this like it's in other people's hands. And to like really embody the experience, to really learn, like, no, it can be in my hands. Yeah. I can actually just say, but I want to play this character and I want to learn how to produce, and I'm going to. And it's a beautiful thing. My favorite thing about film is that it's a community-based artwork. And there's like, I mean, theater too, but it's like, there's virtually no other art. You're a painter, you're a writer, you're doing those things by yourself. Film needs a community. You have to have so many people to help build the same singular piece of art. And to me, that's awesome. I am a huge like community member. I'm like all about my community. And so it was also like, oh my God, we together can like build something that's better than the sum of its parts. And like, how fucking cool to be a producer and be like, just because I decided that this story was worth telling, look at all my friends who got to do what they love for a day. Look at my friends who all got this little job. We got to have fun today. Like, just because I was like, let's do it. Yeah. And that's like such a cool thing to learn. Yeah. It's such a cool thing to experience. It's like, talk about a high when you're like, oh, I could do this.
It's funny you mentioned me, a community in like a village. That's what it takes to create film and to create, a piece of art. coming back to episode 1 where we talked about making a film is like giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that old adage where it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
And it does take a village to create a film. You know, even if it's a village of 2, you know, it still takes a lot of, you can't do it on your own. And I mean, like, sure, you can probably do like a, you know, some weird, you know, visual lookbook with music on it. Like, it's still, that's still a film. Yeah. But the, like a narrative piece with stuff in it, you need others. Yeah. You need other people. Well, speaking of like getting other people on board, giving them a call is one thing, but also kind of funding it is its own challenge. So for the Golden Boys, I remember you did a little bit of you crowdfunded for that film. And that was your first crowdfunding attempt.
Yes.
And it was successful.
It was
so
very successful.
I'd love to hear more about you going from what do I do to then having money to get permits, to get insurance, to get, you know, people paid and food and Yeah. And it is very important to me as a producer, because I've been an actor for so long. It was very important to me that everybody gets paid. If you're on a set with JJ, you get paid. Like I wanted that to be like my starting. I mean, that was just like something that was so important to me. And so, even a small producible film in my apartment requires a lot of people. And I actually got this idea from a friend of mine, but I did a special little hack, which was I paid for production up front, lots of credit cards, and then crowdfunded for post. But actually, it was to also repay myself. Yeah. So people are a lot more willing to fund things when they are done. Yeah. There is something about like, it's been filmed. We just have to finish it. We just look at all these pictures from set. It was so beautiful. We made sure that there were trans people all over that. We were just like, look at this trans mask powerhouse. Look at us all come together, all ins and outs, and being like, this is what you're supporting. Yeah. We just got to finish it. But actually, it was to also repay everything that I had spent for production. That's risky. But it paid off.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, lower stakes. Yeah. It wasn't a huge budget film. It was like, with the amount I had, it was a couple $1,000s. It's like, that's not, I mean, that's a lot, but it's not like a lot. You know, you're not going to die. Yeah. But I also, that's why it's so important to like listen to yourself. I was just so sure that I would be able to raise that money. I was so sure. I didn't have a moment like of hesitation that I wouldn't be able to. And I think that carries a long way when you're just kind of like, I believe this. And so it was also incredible because what I thought was, of course, the original budget ended up going over a lot more. And that's because we had, oh my God, Yara, we had a digital issue. We had a technology issue. Our memory card that had the bulk of the film that day, it was formatted in a weird, it was formatted incorrectly. I don't know what ended up, we couldn't access it at all.
So you had to pay to get it recovered.
We had to pay to get it recovered. Ooh. Unforeseen, like $2,000, and wouldn't have been able to. It was so much, but it had our whole film on it. We were like, we got it. Oh, it was so stressful. We didn't even know if it would work, blah, blah, blah. And also there were cheaper ones, but we went for we were like, we want to make sure.
You want to make sure you got all the footage.
We wanted to make sure it was dealt with well. So we ended up being able to raise the funds for that. Because it was like, oh, this was an unforeseen. So it's not just paying back production. Yeah. It is also like paying for these things I didn't see. And then, ended up making all the money and then some, which was amazing. Yeah. Ended up raising just over $15,000, which is so cool. Yeah. That's so cool that can happen.
Also spend that money. And this is things we talk about in the life of a film. You know, when you produce a film, you pay for the production, but people don't know that there's pre-production costs, there's post-production costs.
Oh yeah.
There's also like
marketing,
post-production costs, like the marketing of the film, covering festivals, covering travel. Premieres. It all costs money. One thing that I always keep in mind when thinking about managing digital data, not to like talk about like boring bits and ones and zeros, but people do sometimes, instead of getting the bigger cards, Well, they'll pop it in like, I can shoot all day. They'll do like the smallest cards possible where like you have 10 minutes on a card.
Yeah.
But they'll have 5 of them.
Yeah.
And then you just pop them in and out all day.
Yeah.
And if one goes, you're missing probably a couple takes instead
Right.
of a whole day.
Right.
And I've started to live by that because people are like, oh, you want a 7 terabyte hard drive? I'm like, no. What's your lowest? Like,
Yeah.
Give me 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fully translated to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And to just be like my DIT on every set, I'm like, you
Treat it like a film
you
roll.
are, yeah, you are the hero
Yeah.
here. We all need you.
Mhm.
Everything is going to end up on just a couple hard drives, and that's scary.
Yeah. And I'm the guy who, when I touch a hard drive, it breaks. I just
Right.
don't know what, I don't touch hard drives
You
anymore.
exist. You people
Yeah.
exist.
And so every time someone hands me a hard drive with spinning discs inside, I'm like, don't let me touch that.
No.
Yeah.
I'm glad you know that about yourself, because I want people like you to tell me that you will not be touching the hard drive.
Yeah, it's a hard learned lesson, unfortunately.
That shit is true. Some
Yeah.
people just have the aura of messing up
I'm like
technology.
magnetic, or there's like an
Yeah,
electricity
literally.
or something, and especially if it's a big hard drive. Ah, man.
Yeah.
What was the coolest thing, or maybe not the coolest thing, but what was the most interesting thing you learned about yourself as a creative and as a producer and as a writer and as an actor through this process of making a film? Because I always think, and I've heard other people on the pod say this, everybody should make a film.
Yeah.
I've heard other filmmakers say this, and it's this idea that everybody should attempt to make a film.
Yeah.
No matter who you are as a creative director, cinematographer, writer, producer, group, because it teaches you a lot about the process. So what did you learn from your process about making The Golden Boys?
That's a great question. What didn't I learn? Like I said, there was a big learning of like,
well, specifically about yourself.
About myself. You know what I learned? I learned I love to be a leader. I love it. Give me that power. You know what I mean? But it's like, it feels so like, put me in charge, because I like want to give that power back to those who deserve it. Yeah. I feel like there's such a power in being the producer and being like, I've worked with you and you get to be here. And my favorite compliment that I got on set was just how much people loved the other people on set. They're like, oh, this is a great set. And I'm like, that's what I want to hear. Because what is set? It's a party. Yeah. And what have I always done? Thrown parties. I love hosting parties. And that's the energy. The host. The producer feels like the host. It's like, I've brought you all together. I provided food and entertainment. Make a movie.
Well,
right?
Now
and
we're going to play a game.
The party is we're making a movie. Yeah, the game is we're making a movie.
Yeah. I like that outlook. I like that, because some people don't do that. Some people are like, you're here for a job. You're going to work. We're going to do 12-hour days, and you're going to love it. Yeah. You know?
And to each their own. I mean, those sets exist for people like that. So I'm glad those sets exist. As for me and my house, as for my sets, it's like we are absolutely professional, but it's because it's most important that we're having a good time. Yeah. That we like love who we're with. And again, it's like, it's a piece of art that we're all making together. Yeah. And I think everything that's felt off camera is shown on camera, whether it's like literally like in the quality or just in like the energy. It's communicated on set. I mean, on camera, like what happened on set. Yeah. I think it's felt. I think it's palpable. And I think when like the set is happy, the film benefits from it in ways you can't really like put a finger on or a number to, you know?
I agree. So everybody listening at home, go make a movie. Even if you're a receptionist at a salon, even if you're a CEO.
Especially if you're a receptionist at a salon. I want your story.
There's a really cool story there. Go make a movie.
Go do it.
Go make a movie and learn some stuff about yourself and use it as a learning process for other things. Because you will learn other skills and other things about yourself that are going to change your life, I think.
Yeah, literally. Go have a baby.
A creative baby, yeah. Well, I want to talk to you more about creativity, and I want to talk to you about writing, which you've been doing a lot more as you've been producing bigger films and bigger projects. But I think we'll save that for episode 3. But for this week, thank you for coming on the pod, JJ.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Indiewood Podcast. You can find the podcast and anywhere you find your podcasts, or on the CFA YouTube channel.
From the CFA network, Cinematography for Actors is bridging the gap through education and community building. Find out about us and listen to our other podcast at cinematographyforactors.com.
Cinematography for Actors Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit.
For more information on fiscal sponsorship, donations, because we're tax exempt now, so it's a tax write-off, and upcoming education, you can email us at contact@cinematographyforactors.com. Thanks.